In this video I'm going to show you how to change a rear cassette on a bicycle. This will apply to road bikes and mountain bikes. This is something that you really need to do about every year or two. If you replace your chain often enough, typically the cassette will not wear as fast. But if you wait too long to replace your chain and it gets too stretched out, the cassette's going to stretch with it, and you need to replace your cassette when you replace the chain. This is something that I use frequently. This is a part chain checker, and what this does is it tells you how much your chain has stretched. When mine gets about to the 0.75 mark, I go ahead and replace my chain so I don't have to replace this as often. But this technique will show you how to change the cassette. What you're going to need for this is just a typical large adjustable wrench. You're going to need this tool. This is a lock ring tool for a cassette. And you're also going to need a chain whip. And what this does is it holds the cassette in place as you remove the lock ring. Okay, I've got the wheel off the bike. The first thing that you're going to need to do is remove your skewer. And you place that aside. And now you're going to insert your lock ring tool like this. Make sure it goes firmly inside. Now what you can do as a safety measure is use your skewer to hold it on. Now this one has kind of that bar that protrudes, so I can't do that, and I don't need to, but if it's the older style tool or a different kind that does not have this, I recommend using your skewer to hold the lock ring tool on while you remove it so it doesn't slip out and strip your lock ring. So now I'm going to take my chain whip and I put it on one of the larger cogs, and that holds it in place while I remove the lock ring. So it's a typical counterclockwise rotation, and I'm going to use my wrench, get the lock ring loose, and then I can just do the rest with my hand. Take off the lock ring and then just pull the cassette off. Now usually you'll have several teeth that you remove, and sometimes it's easier to take them off one by one. Now this cassette has several different pieces to it, and this one was kind of actually stuck on there pretty good. So what I did was I took just a cone wrench like this, and I had to stick it between the teeth and kind of twist it and get them off. So this one is all individual teeth except for the last three. Before you put the new cassette on, just take a rag or paper towel with some rubbing alcohol or some simple green or maybe even some mineral spirits, and clean off your free hub body and just wipe off any dirt around the hub, since this is usually a place that you can't get to with the cassette on. Okay, now it's time to just put the new cassette on, and your free hub is going to have individual slots. There's one slot that's wider than all the other ones, and if you look on your cassette, you're going to have one of these teeth inside that's wider than the other ones, and you need to line those up. And I usually put that at the top so it's easy to see. And this one actually has a groove in that inside tooth on the widest one. So I'm just going to slide that on. Now this one also has a washer that I put on first. So check and see if your free hub has that on there. And then obviously you start with the biggest one. Slide it on. And then you're going to just slide the individual pieces on. Now these come on one of these little plastic things to hold everything together. There are certain spacers that need to go on, so don't just pull the cassette off and let everything fall out. You want to know where your spacers go. For instance, this first individual cog does not need a spacer, so I just slide that on by itself. Now the next one requires a spacer, and I just keep putting these on the free hub body one by one, adding the spacer if that's next. So I'm just holding this together with my fingers. You can also keep it on the plastic thing, but this one I had to actually pull it off to get to the big one first. And also make sure when you put these on, you're putting them on with the numbers. There's a number for how many teeth. For instance, this is a 15. That's how many teeth are in this cog. Make sure those face the outside. Okay, if you keep them together with your finger and put them on in order, they'll be like that, but just make sure you don't turn those around. Keep the numbers facing the outside. And just put these on one by one. Alright, I've got all the cogs on. Now it's just time to take the lock ring and put that on. So I just kind of lay it on there. Then I take my lock ring tool, spin it, and it's really important to make sure you don't cross thread the lock ring. If it starts to feel funny, and if you've worked in a shop long enough, you've probably cross threaded something and you know what it feels like. It kind of starts to get harder to turn, but it's not at the end. So just pay attention that you don't cross thread that lock ring into the free hub body, because that would destroy the free hub body, at least that outside part. So just make sure you pay attention to that. Okay, now that I've gotten the lock ring pretty much as tight as I can get it with my hand, just take your adjustable wrench or whichever one you use on this lock ring tool, tighten it down. This does not have to be crazy tight. You're going to feel it kind of ratchet as those teeth grab inside the lock ring. I would say maybe about 8 to 10 Newton meters is about all you're going to need. And when you're done, the teeth, the cogs should not have any play in them. Okay? If they do, that means the lock ring may have been cross-threaded and is not on there completely. Again, it should go on smoothly. If you feel it start to grab in a weird way, back off the lock ring tool, go again until you get a smooth engagement, and get it hand tight, and then finish it up with a wrench. So that's it. I've got my new cassette on. I'm just going to put my skewer back in, put the wheel back on the bike, and I'm ready to ride.